or a bad trade paperback flocking to the
I am joined by the amazing Allison O'Toole, Dan Price, Andre Owen, Fred Kennedy, Chip Zdarsky. Chip, thanks for coming. What's up, folks? I'm your host, Konrad, on Wednesday Night Reviews, and today we're joined by Jerry Carita, and we're going to talk about their newest book that's on Kickstarter now, The Grizzly Crew. Jerry, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Konrad. Really appreciate it. It's funny, I didn't know who was in the little rip there. I met Chip Zdarsky at New York Comic Con this year.
Such a good guy.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. He was like I believe so far to date, he's the biggest person I've ever interviewed when it comes to fame and reach and all that kind of stuff, for as much as we get in the comic book world. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And when he came in, I was a little nervous, right? He walked right up to me. He's like, "Hey, Connor, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey, Mr. Zdarsky." He's like, "Oh, just call me Chip." I'm like, "Oh, hey, Chip, how's it going? Cool." And he was like, "All right, I'm going to go get a coffee. I'll be right back." And I'm like, "All right, we're good." And I did a whole interview and it was fun.
That's great. Yeah, most people in the industry, I think, are like really easygoing, and they love to talk about what they're doing and what they're writing and sort of the crafts and all that. That's what I've learned since I've started doing this stuff, is that people just like to chat about what they're doing and how they're doing it and kind of the whole process.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, I always start my interviews on the same easy question. So Jerry, for the folks at home who are maybe watching now or watching in the next 8 days, who will be backing your campaign, who may have never seen your face, never heard your name, who is Jerry Carita?
Jerry Carita is a reality television producer by day and comic book creator by night and also by day, let's be honest. I'm the creator of, in the next 8 days, I'm the creator of a project called The Grizzly Crew, which is an all-ages series. It's on Kickstarter right now. I'm also the editor and founder of Thorny Comics, which is an imprint I started about 2 years ago to print my own creator-owned stories. This is my second one, and also to publish stories that friends of mine have written or things like that. I'm doing an anthology series. There's a project called Reign of Dracula, written by Rich Davis, drawn by Les Lyndon Garner, that I do. We're publishing that one as well. So I have a couple of projects, a lot of irons in the fire. But that's me. That's me in a nutshell. Very
cool. I didn't know that you sort of produced and helped get other people's comics made too. Good to know. And obviously the book we're here to talk about today is your current book on Kickstarter, which I'll pop up now on the screen, which is The Grizzly Crew, which I think is a truly adorable project. From what I've read and understood and listened to you talk about on other podcasts about it, I think it's a fun project. So can you give the folks out there in a nutshell sort of what this thing is?
Yeah, first I want to say I was scared for a moment there because I didn't realize that you're in Canada, so it converted.
Yes,
and I thought I lost a few $100 today, and I was like, "What happened?" So thank you for the heart attack.
Sorry.
So The Grizzly Crew is, as it says there, it's a new comic about pirate bears. It's a story about a group of pirate bear. They're bear buccaneers. Bear Caneers. I'm going to play with that now and come up with a word, but they're pirate bears who they protect villages from actually scary pirates, and it's a story that was co-created with my son, who kind of walked into my office one day. There's a longer story that I'll probably tell you, but he walked into my office one day, and within a couple of minutes we were kind of pitching this idea, bouncing this idea back and forth, and it became this thing, and so. That's the story. It's an all-ages book. It's on Kickstarter now. This is the first issue. I have 5 issues planned as like a little mini series, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Very cool. I guess you know what? Because we have a local team, another father and son team, who made a comic called, let's get a good shot of the title at least, Cereal Box Time Machine, which is, it's designed to be sort of like a Saturday morning cartoon book, where again the son pitched an idea and the father kind of ran with it. Please do elaborate on the story of how sort of your son has contributed to the book, what made you want to run with it, and sort of what it's like to work with your kid.
Yeah, so I was this was about 2 years ago, and it was the day that Midjourney first came out, the AI thing. And like everybody
Okay.
else, I was trying to figure out, is this the end of civilization? Is it like, what is it? So I was tooling around with it, and I was feeding it like dopey things. And then my son walked in. He was 6 years old at the time, and he looked at the screen, and I had I was working on a book called Cicada Samurai at the time. So I had this like insecty looking thing with swords on the screen, and he's like, "What is this?" And I'm a moron, so when my kids ask questions, I answer them. So,
Nice.
so I was like, "It's an artificial intelligence art generator." And he's like, "He's 6." He's like, "What does that mean?" Like, it's a computer.
really.
You feed it information. It steals from the internet, and it kind of makes you a new thing out of it. So I was like, he's like, "Okay, can it make a Spider-Man monkey?" And he started listing things that he wanted to see, a minion wizard, a bunch of like random stuff, which it did. And then he asked for a pirate bear, and the thing that appeared on my screen when I typed in "imagine a pirate bear" was this like horrific, malformed like silhouette of a monster of a bear.
Okay.
And my son's afraid of bears, so he was just staring at it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna give you a moment to process. I went back to my other screen over here and started typing whatever I was doing, and then suddenly he just goes out of nowhere. He's like, "Dad, his name is Captain Grizzly." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "He's a grizzly bear. He's Captain Grizzly." And I was like, "Oh, that's adorable. That's really good. That's cute, kid." And I kept on going back to my work, and he just kept adding to it. He just was standing there like trying to get my attention, and he just kept adding to it. He was like, it's a story. He's the captain of a ship. All the pirates on the ship are bears, and they go around looking for treasure, but it's not gold. It looks like gold, but it's not gold. It's wax. And when you squeeze it, it's filled with honey. That's why it looks like gold, Dad, because gold. I'm like, no, I know. I get it. I'm with you already. And then I started paying attention, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he just out of nowhere, he goes, "It's called the Grizzly Crew." This is the first like 30 seconds of the conversation. Is he named one of the main characters, told me what it's about, and gave it a title that stuck. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm writing this now. So we started bouncing ideas back and forth, and he, through just like asking questions and learning about bears, and he started watching YouTube videos about koalas because I had to tell him. He was like, "What about a koala?" And I was like,
Bear.
"Not exactly what I said." I'm like, again, I debate. So I'm like, "It's a marsupial. It's a totally different kind of animal," like trying to be smart dad. And he's like, and he right away goes, "Well, maybe he doesn't know that. Maybe he thinks he's a bear anyway." And I was like, "Why are you smarter than me? You're 6." But that all happened about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And then all these notes we made and all these characters we kind of made up on the fly over the course of the next couple of days of just talking. I sent them to my buddy Nick Justice, who's a comic artist I work with a lot. He's awesome. And I asked him, I actually called him and I said, "My son came up with this idea, Captain Grizzly. It's a grizzly bear that is a pirate." And Nick drew something for me that probably it's beautiful, but it looks more at home on like a board book for toddlers. Like it's the kind of thing you read to your, you know what I mean? It was
It's
very
it'll be really cartoony looking.
Yeah, I mean, these are cartoony looking, but like it had no edge to it. It was very like, it was like a fun, totally cuddly bear character. And my son was like, "This is cool, but shouldn't Captain Grizzly be a little bit scarier and bigger and whatever?" So we started actually going, I gave Nick's the thing I commissioned from him was it was like a 8x10 full color thing that I have that's beautiful and that I'll keep forever. Or my son will keep it forever, I guess. I'll let him have it since I got it for him. But Nick started coming back to me with new designs, and kind of the creative touchstone were things that Nick and I both grew up watching, like the Disney afternoon. So Tailspin, which of course is just a rehash of the Jungle Book, those characters, Baloo and Uncle Louie and all those characters. And then Gummy Bears and all these things that I used to love watching when I was a kid, Saturday morning cartoon stuff. And so Nick came back. The art on the screen here is actually by my cover artist, Pablo Verdugo, who's also fantastic. Is this the actual campaign? You can scroll down a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah, this is live.
So, yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see these are the characters that Nick initially designed right there.
Okay.
And so that's the Claw family, Captain Grizzly, Rosie and Jimmy on the top. Those are the 2 stars of the book. Those are the 2 young, main characters, the protagonists. Stefan is the polar bear, and then those are 2 of the villains who we don't actually meet until 2 or 3 issues in. And then in the background, you can kind of see the shadow of Captain Wolfheart, who's the main villain in the story.
I dig it. That's super cool that it all sort of came out of 30 seconds of your son being like, boom, here we go, and then continuing on.
Yeah, he just kind of intuitively kind of he's also a huge liar. So I think it kind of like he's a good story. Let's not sugarcoat it. He's a good storyteller.
There you go.
He's a good storyteller. So
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been great, and like working with him has been a lot of fun. And just kind of like because sometimes I have a thought where it's like I have the experience telling stories and stuff, so I'll have to like walk him up to a decision about stuff because I want him to feel like he's doing it with me always. So sometimes it's him going, Stefan is a grumpy polar bear, and he's grumpy because it's hot where the pirates are, but the polar bear wants it to be cold, and so he's always uncomfortable, and that makes him angry, and that's why he's always angry. And I was like, that's hilarious and perfect, and I write it down exactly as he says it. But then sometimes he's like, what if space and time rip open and the ship falls through like a mountain or something, and you're like, well, it's a little off, a little out of nowhere. So that process has been a lot of fun though, like working with him and just kind of coming up with ideas and watching how his mind works and all that. It's been like a blast. It's been a lot of fun.
Cool. That is super cool. A really quick comment we've got from Jamie Buchanan. Hello, my good friend. Always interested in what you're doing. So cool. Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie is my buddy. Jamie's the star of the History Channel series Dirty Old Cars.
Oh, very cool.
That was my show. So I produced the first season of that show.
Right on. That's super cool.
Thanks, Jamie.
I sort of have a question about that. So obviously to do this, I wanted to be competent in what it is that you do, who you are. So I found out, a lot of the shows that you've been a part of, you're primarily producing and executive producing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you've been a part of the Old Rusty Cars, Hero Inc. There's another show you did earlier about tattoos. You've done.
I did New York Inc. I did Hero Inc. and I did Epic Inc. Lots of inks in my past. Yeah.
Yes, that was the one. You've also done stuff with. I don't know if the right term for them is chefs, but people who specialize in like ribs, chicken wings, brisket, that kind of stuff. Thank you. That's the term.
We got it.
Yeah. And what I found interesting about all of that was, as you're sort of leading up to that, you do a whole bunch of that kind of stuff, and then you worked on Comic Book Men and a few other things, and now you're actually into making your own projects, and it's about something like pirates. Now I appreciate your son gave the big nod of information for that, but I found something interesting in the fact that everything you sort of primarily focused on had to do with people who are sort of working with their hands. They're physical people, and you sort of continued that. What I wanted to know was, how was working on those previous projects, how did that inform your writing and the way that you handle the story for this, but also working with your son?
Oh wow, that's a good deep. It's a deep cut right there.
Thank you. Actually, take some time to think.
Yeah, no, that's good. In my television career, I've always kind of prided myself on the fact that I've never been pigeonholed. So I've done, like you pointed out, some people will become the person you call every time you're doing a cooking show, and that's like the one thing that they're called for. And I have kind of always done like 1 or 2 seasons of something and then moved on to something completely different. And so I've never heard anyone actually try to find a common thread from like a tattoo show to a cooking show to like a car detailing show to a car building show. But yeah, that's true. They all kind of work with their hands, and I think those are just great stories. I think the people who do that stuff, and they're literally like, the expression is, I want to go out and get my hands dirty. It's that for a reason. The reason that's the expression is that's how you go out and learn stuff and see stuff. That's how you see the world, And so everything from, a distillery in the middle of nowhere in Alaska, and they're going on adventures to look for random things that they could make alcohol out of, that they can kind of infuse into alcohol, to like, being in Miami and it's like, or New York, and they're doing tattoos like in the most urban of environments in the world. But all those things are people who are literally getting their hands dirty and meeting other people and kind of learning about the world. And so I think they just make good stories because they make good TV because they're doing interesting things. You know, if you're not out there getting your hands dirty, like what are you doing that would be interesting to other people, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And like from that, like I said, like I was curious, how do you feel that working on those projects has informed the way that you work on the Grizzly Crew and how you work on it with your kid?
Well, from the storytelling perspective, I've always felt like a good story is a good story. And like when you hear people like Scott Snyder or Chip Zdarsky, when they talk about the craft, they talk about it crafting a story and building a story and making an interesting character or building a world. They talk about it in all the same terms that my screenwriting and my teleplay writing professors used to 20 years ago in college. You know, like a good story is a good story. And you know, you can kind of translate it into different, like if you're writing a teleplay, you're looking for an act break to have a cliffhanger. You know, in a comic book, you're looking for that page turn moment to make people keep reading. So they all have like little tricks and little other elements to it. But ultimately, you know, a good story is a good story. And so from that perspective, I think all the time spent in edit bays taking random footage of people doing adventurous things and trying to create a narrative out of it with a beginning and a middle and an end that keeps an audience engaged for a full hour of television, even with commercials, you know, like that they're willing to sit around, that they want to see what happens next. I think that skill set translates into this. So from a storytelling perspective, that's the answer. From the rest of it is, when you're a television producer, it's an incredibly collaborative thing that you're doing. You have to rely on a team of people, other people who are also creative and smart and are better at things that you're not as good at. And working with, you know, the artists in a comic book is the same thing. Like I recognize that I could not draw these characters. I could not tell a story sequentially the way that Nick does, the way that a lot of these guys do. And so learning how to communicate the thing that you want to convey and having someone else create it in front of you, you know, like that's amazing. And that's a great skill set that I learned working in television, you know, like working with the camera team and the audio team and the other producers, the editors and whoever, you know, on some shows, like creating you know, set pieces that are going to be the backdrop of whatever it is you've written. And like, you know, like I have to write, when you're writing a teleplay, you write all that into a teleplay. Now I'm just doing it into a script for a comic book instead and passing it off to Nick. Working with my son, there isn't really a parallel. Like he's funny and, you know, we're kind of doing it together. But, you know, it's just been like a lot of fun doing that. And I think that I guess in a lot of ways it is just also collaborative. You're just kind of bringing somebody who's like 8 years old along for the ride, and kind of, you know, still negotiating your ideas and stuff.
Regarding that and working with Harlan, I guess one big thing that I'm super curious about, because I've interviewed 100+ comic book creators. Some of them I've had multiple times because they keep putting out comics because they're very successful at it. Other times it's just, you know, I make one a year and so I get this guy once every year or whatever. Sometimes it's just a one-off. Generally speaking, they're all very like, oh my God, I thought making the book was hard, but now I'm doing all of this kind of stuff. It's like it's its own job. I'm curious, what's Harlan's experience been when it comes to checking out shows? Like, is he up in another room watching this? Is he off playing video games? Is he watching the Kickstarter constantly to be like, oh my God, did we get it? Is he like jittery? Is he like, does he even realize? I don't know.
So he likes to absorb a lot of information. So every day he'll ask me how it's doing. Every day he'll ask to see, like, did we hit the number yet? Like, he understands kind of how Kickstarter works, and so he'll ask me every day, you know, do we get the number? Are we going to be able to print the book? Is it going to be? Are we going to do it? So he's really into that part of the process. I have not had him on any of the shows. I've thought about that. He's actually a little shy at first, and so I don't know how good of an interview it would be. But once he loosens up, he gets going, you know. But you can't give an 8-year-old a shot to loosen him up. So You know, not here anyway. So he doesn't do that. I don't think he's seen any of the interviews. I've shown him a couple interviews after the fact, and he'll watch for a few minutes and then get bored and want to watch like wacky loud guys making pancakes or whatever he wants to do on YouTube.
I mean, fair. It's
yeah.
Like I said, you're the second time I've ever heard of a father-son team with such a young child doing it. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That being said, we're about 20 minutes in, Jerry. So let's see if I can't get a nice shot of some art here. What I wanted to go through with you is just sort of, there we go.
There you go.
The basics. When it comes to people pledging for the book, getting the book, typically what I like to ask is, what is the least expensive option they have to get in on it? What's like a crazier high-end option? And we'll start there, I guess.
Let me pull it up on my end too, because I just to double check my own facts here. I wanted to keep it really simple. Like it can be Kickstarter campaigns. Like if you're going to go to like a Lady Death campaign and one of those, there's like reward coins.
Oh my God!
Holofoils. And they do such a great job at it, and I'm just me, so I'm not doing that. But it's we kept it pretty basic, so it's pretty straightforward. There is a $6 tier, which there it is, you pulled it up for me. $6 tier, which is you get the PDF of the story. The whole book is, just to recap what it is, it's a 22-page story. It's full color inside. We're at the stage where we're doing colors and then printing, so that's what the Kickstarter will help pay for. It'll get us over the hump and help us finish the book. So colors, letters, and printing. So right now it's in inks and a couple of pages are colored. So when you go back to the campaign page in a little bit, you'll see a few of the interior pages are colored and some of them are not. But we're working on it. And go ahead.
Is the size like a standard floppy, or is it like a different?
No, it's going to be a standard comic book size. I thought about doing that. I thought about having like going a little nuts with it and doing like. Did you see there was a book a year or two ago called Grizz Grobus?
I didn't.
It actually got picked up by Image. Image is going to print it as a floppy, but as like a trade paperback, but a small one. When he did that book, I can't remember his name now, but he was very nice. I talked to him via like Facebook Messenger or something. I asked him about it because Simon Wright. Yeah, he printed on. It's an odd size. It's a little bit bigger than like a Captain Underpants size book. It's a little bit like a little slightly larger in different directions, but it's like a great little. It's a smaller handheld book, and because this is an all ages story, I thought about doing that, but I would have to, I think, write the entire arc first. I wouldn't want to do that 22 pages hardcover book. It doesn't make sense.
Fair.
So I stuck with the floppies, and I stuck with the with what we were already doing. So the cheapest, the least expensive way to get in is a PDF. It is a digital reward only. It's $6, and then there are multiple. I have 3 covers. All the covers are the same price. So for $10, you can get Nick Justice's cover, which he's the series artist and character designer and all that. So that first cover with Jimmy the Koala, and underneath it you see Captain Wolfheart diving at him. That's $10. You can get the same thing. You can get Pablo Verdugo's cover, which is the one that I have currently as the cover photo for the campaign. Mm-hmm. And then the third one is black and white, and it's Len Danovich did this cover. He's wonderful, and his cover kind of focuses more on Rosie, who's the bear co-captain of the main character, I guess. Right. And so any one of those is just $10. I think Kickstarter prices can sometimes be higher too. I'm very aware of the fact that this is an all ages book, and all ages books sometimes are a little harder to get funded. So I wanted to bring the price down and try and make it more palatable. So
nice.
Those are all $10. I think if you scroll down a little bit more, for $12, you can choose a virgin cover. $15, you can choose a virgin cover. So any one of those 3 covers comes in virgin, and then you pick after the fact. And then I have other deals in place. If you want 2 of the trade dress covers, you get a little discount. Like I think it's 10% off. You can choose 2 virgin covers. You get a little discount. So each one of those things kind of comes with a break. You can get all 3 trade covers. You can get all 3 Virgin covers. You can get all 6 covers. And there are 2 retailer tiers, one with 10 copies and one with 20. And those, I worked really hard on those because in the past I worked with Blue Juice Comics, which has had books in stores for on and off for 10 years now. And so, we kind of are partners in a lot of these things. And so my first email list was their email list. And so when we first started, when Blue Juice brought their first Kickstarter project online, I helped manage it. It was for a book called Billy the Kit, written by Justin Gray, drawn by Barry McLean, co-created by those 2. And so a lot of retailers reached out and they were like, we can't afford this. Like, even the 20-30% off, because retailers, when they buy, an indie book, they're buying them through the big distributor. They're getting them for like 50% off. So that's what I did here. So if you're a retailer, if you're out there and you want this book, it's 55% off if you want 10 copies of this book. And this is the kind of book where anytime somebody walks in, you can choose whatever covers you want. And anytime somebody walks in with their kid and goes, do you have anything kids can read? This is a thing
right
that
here.
I think, yeah, exactly. I think it's a no-brainer for in stores. I think this book will do really well in conventions for the same reason. I think it's just like people looking to buy something for their kid before they go home after spending all weekend, at New York Comic Con or, all those places. But those are my 2 retailer tiers. And then, there's one tier where you can get all of everything for $60.
Oh yeah. The big one. And then you've got another retailer tier for 20 copies.
Yeah.
Nice. And then, all the early bird stuff.
Yeah, that's all expired. So this is something else I wanted to do. So Nick Justice, who's the artist, is fantastic, and I wanted to keep him as busy as possible. So if you back the campaign at any level, you can scroll down on this main campaign page and you'll see what I'm about to talk about. Scroll down a little bit there. Keep going. The add-ons. These are the interior pages. We can come back to that. Keep going. Art commissions. So these are the add-ons. If you back the campaign at any physical level, it unlocks the ability to order any one of these, a commission. You can name your character, anything from cartoons or comic books, and Nick will draw you a 5x8 or an 11x17, an ink sketch or a full color one, depending on which one you want to order. So almost all the add-ons are geared towards keeping Nick busy after the campaign is over. But poor Nick. He lives for it. And look at the characters, that's
they're
Sandman,
awesome.
Death. If you scroll up a little bit, they just brought back Space Ghost. He has a Space Ghost here right there on the right there. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually very impressed with these too. Like, I think I have another comic creator, Jason Lapidus, who draws in almost Jack Kirby-esque style. Very, as he says, he's extremely conscious of line economy. So he wants to keep things as detailed as possible without overcrowding the page in any capacity. And I'm going to say it wrong. I think this is the Spirit, the Batman from the animated series, the Iron Man, even as complex as that is, stunning. And very, very Bruce Timm, which I appreciate. Same with the Death. Poor Nick though, because I see him being very busy because these are really well done.
He's really good, and honestly, he loves doing this. And so, if you want an art commission, you can back this at any physical level, and then you can get one of these unlocked, and you can pick any character you want. He'll draw it. He's amazing.
I dig it. That is super cool. Absolutely. When it came to finding Nick, what was the process like for that?
So Nick and I knew each other already. I had already done a couple. I tabled with Nick at a couple of conventions. So on one of the shows I worked on, like you pointed out, was Comic Book Men. A few of the people I worked with in producing that show went on to form a comic book company, Blue Juice Comics. And so they publish they do the accelerators. They do Anne Bonny. Most recently, they do a series called Billy the Kit. And that's one. So about 2-3 years ago, when I started doing this, getting more into comics, I started working with them. I went to New York Comic Con with them. I went to MegaCon with them twice. We did the New Jersey Comic Fest. We did the Brooklyn Comic Con in New York. A couple of these I did by myself. You know, and I had a lot of fun. But Nick, for example, we did the Fairfax Comic Con in Virginia, stateside, and so Nick lives down there nearby. So he came and tabled with me the whole weekend. So I've been working with him. You know, he's the artist for Anne Bonny at Blue Juice Comics. So that's the connection. So I knew when I started doing this, I'd seen Nick's style. I follow him online, you know, and we'd been talking about it. So, you know, I just started, he was the first person I thought of. You know, he does a lot of, like, you can see from the commission work, he does a lot of, like, you know, these characters that are, there's Anne Bonny and Blue Juice Comics. So he does a lot of, you know, a lot of really great kind of cartoon. He loves cartoons. And so, like, the Batman, you know, the 90s Batman animated series and all that, he does all that stuff. And he does it really well. I ordered a few commissions from, actually, hold on, I think I have one right here.
Oh, cool. Please do.
He has a bunch of sketch covers that he orders them in bulk and then puts them online and waits for people to come forward and ask, you know, can I have one of these? So this is a sketch cover. My kids all have different favorite Avengers. So I got a Captain Marvel for my daughter. I got a Captain America for one of my sons. And this is what Harlan asked for, was Iron Man.
Oh my God. That's like...
So that's a sketch cover that he did. Oh, that's the angle. There you go.
Yeah, that's wild.
He's really good. And so, you know, he's got this very colorful, when he does the colors himself, this kind of like very kind of classic cartoon style. And so I knew right away, I was like, I'm basing this on visually on cartoons from when I was a kid. Like, he's the guy. And so it was never a question who I was going to work with. It was always going to be him.
That's sick. One important thing to ask. So say if someone spends their $6 US for digital or their $10 US for the physical, like they get the book. As you mentioned earlier, it's in the process of being inked. I guess the question is the ideal end, because the campaign ends in 8 days from now. Would people be getting their books? Actually, when would people be getting their books? I'm used to like a month turnaround if the book's nearly done.
Yeah, it's probably going to be like 4 to 6 weeks. That's the idea.
Oh, cool.
That's the hope. Is that what is it? It's going to be March. So I have 2 campaigns that I'm fulfilling currently,
Nice.
and they're both ahead of that. So I think I gave myself until April in the comic because it's not finished. So when I did Cicada Samurai, that book was done before the campaign was over. That's the one I'm fulfilling right now. I've already done digitally. The files are at the printer. That one's on its way to me in a week or two. Very excited about that. Very exciting. The files for Reign of Dracula, which is a super complicated thing that we did with like 28 different covers. It was huge. Seriously, I learned a lot on that one too. Lots of chasing everyone down after that. So that is still, the files for that one are being created now. That'll go to the printer in a week or two, and then this one comes right after it.
Well,
so it might be April.
Yeah, knock on wood. I hope it all goes well. I have been doing what I do. I understand there are sometimes hiccups that happen at the printers. I hope it all goes well. Quick question, Cicada Samurai. Actually, I'll bring that up.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, the artist on that, it would be Mary Landreau, correct?
That's correct. Mary Landreau, fellow Canadian,
fellow alumni of the show.
Keith
Curtis says, "Hey guys."
Keith did a cover for me for Cicada Samurai and Billy the Kid. I met Keith. So Keith's an artist. He had a whole career. He wasn't there. Thank you, Keith. Pleasure working with you too, buddy. Keith walked up to me at MegaCon. I think he lives in Florida. So he walked up to me at MegaCon. I was behind the Blue Juice booth, and he said probably the funniest. He didn't mean it to be funny at all, but he said probably the funniest thing you could say to a stranger like that. He walked up to me and he looked me right in the eye and he just goes, "Do you want to be my first?" And that was it. And I was like, it depends on your first what, buddy, you know? And he said, I've never shown my portfolio of work to anybody before. Like, do you want to be the first person I showed it to? And I was like, yes, I do.
Nice.
Absolutely. Yes, I do. Of course. Keith, I'm telling you, Keith,
Yep.
it's the funniest thing. I've lived on that story for like 2 years now. It's a great story. And so he showed me and he's a huge Spider-Man and Spawn. He's a big Todd McFarlane fan. So he had just this like enormous portfolio of really professional splash pages of these superhero characters fighting, and they were just gorgeous. And so, you know, when we were doing the Billy the Kid campaign, I reached out. We wanted more covers to include in the campaign, and we reached out to Keith, and he came on board and he did one of the covers, and he did a pinup for me on Cicada Samurai.
Now, yeah, I want to be clear because I know you've got two from Mary, which is those first two. With
To Mary.
Nope.
She's also my interior artist.
Yes, yeah, I remember her. She wouldn't tell me much, but I knew she was busy, and it was like, all right, cool, all right. Keith says that cover was so fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. So these other two covers here, one is Takashi Okazaki, he's the Afro Samurai creator and does a ton of animation and stuff. Yeah, cool. Dude, like I got so lucky, man. I reached out to some people on Instagram and I was like, I have an idea about a cicada who's also a samurai, and he was into it and started writing back to me. And that's how that happened. I don't have like a bigger story. He literally was just into the idea, and he designed the characters for the book. And then Walt Flanagan is, from Comic Book Men and the Tell 'em Steve Dave podcast. You know, more recently the Tell 'em Steve Dave podcast, which is kind of a big juggernaut of a thing.
Yeah, and
but he's done some work with Blue Juice as well, and obviously I met Walt on the set of Comic Book Men, and so when I knew I was doing this fairly violent samurai story, I knew Walt would have he has like a very like he loves like old school monsters and really violent zombie stuff, and like, you know, I just knew he would like do a really gritty, different take from what Mary was doing and what Takashi was doing, and I wanted it to be kind of, you know, his is like an angry man samurai in a cicada outfit, you know, who just is tearing people to shreds, and I love it. God. I love it.
That's so cool. To take it back to Grizzly, I did have a question. I guess I have two. So the first may answer the second, but we'll start there. I guess it's a fill in the blank. If people like X, they will like Grizzly Crew. What's X?
X is like, I mean, it's kind of like if you like comics and you want to read them with your kids, because a lot of the ones you get now are not good for that. You can't sit down with your 7-8-year-old and read them a story. I would say it is. I'm trying to think of like cartoons that kind of, or even other comics that kind of like match up to it. It is all ages, and there aren't that many of those these days. You know, not out in the indie world. Yeah. So I don't really have a good comparison for that, but just if you enjoy it's a fun story. It's there's some seriousness to it. Like some of the characters go through some real stuff, and I'm not trying to be like a therapist with it, but it's based on a thing that my kid is afraid of. Like Harlan's afraid of bears, and so I think that's part of why he made up a story where the bears are the heroes, and he made the bears fun and funny and all that. Yeah. And so the story is kind of infused with that throughout. It's all the things kids are afraid of, and then kind of like what we do as parents to help them through that. So parents will recognize a lot of the conversations in there too, and a lot of like the things. It's essentially a bedtime story. The dad in the story, his kids can't sleep at night because they're afraid pirates are going to come back in the middle of the night, and so dad starts telling them about the Grizzly Crew. He's like, you guys don't have to worry. The town and we got together, we hired the Grizzly Crew, and so they were totally protected now, all good. You can go to sleep. And the kids are like, if you scroll down one page, you can kind of see how much they don't believe their dad. At the bottom of that page. Nice. Yeah, it's kind of like, come on, Dad. Dad's full of it again, And that's kind of how it starts. And then, you know, by the end of the story, it's like dad is a kind of a classic unreliable narrator. He's telling the story, he gets a little too into it, he makes something too scary, mom has to come in, refocus the story and bring it down to like a bedtime story so the kids actually go to sleep. You know, so the story will kind of change depending on which parent is narrating it, and sort of what happens there. And you know, and then by the end, you don't know if the Grizzly Crew exists only in the story within the story, or if they exist, you know, in the world.
So that's sort of what I wanted to ask and was curious about. From what I've gathered, what I've seen, what I've checked out here, the story that involves the dad, the mom, the kids basically has to do with a village or a city that's come under attack from pirates, correct? Like real, actual pirates.
Yeah, scary ones. That was very important to me. I wanted them to be like terrible. That first page you can see, I was like, I told Nick, I'm like, they need to actually be terrifying. Like the kind of thing where if you turned around and that was looking in your window, you would jump.
Oh, no, thank you. So the question I had is, and I guess I'll give a bit of context for this because I think it'll make more sense this way. Often very good cartoons, the ones that like stand the test of time, the Disney films, for instance, a lot of the classic ones, Avatar: The Last Airbender, they will have like fun kitty, haha, goofy stuff like Bears Who Are Pirates. And then they'll have a very much so adult current undertone of like, here's this really messed up stuff, kind of like Bluey, where it's like, haha, blue fun dogs, and then it's like devastatingly hard stuff.
Right.
In this book, in your book, and maybe this is too much of a spoiler, but so please feel free to say spoiler or whatever, and not tell me. But is there going to be like a really nasty undercurrent of the parents dealing with pirates, or is this going to be like a fun haha kids book? I'm so curious.
It's kind of there is definitely going to be an undercurrent of real stuff going on, and like characters in there doing real stuff. I can tell you something, for example, that it's going to be in this first issue. It's in this first issue, but it's not, you know, it's not really a spoiler for the actual story. So you can see in this image here, right? My koala character, Jimmy, who's one of the two main characters, is not in that image. And it's because he's not part of the Grizzly Crew yet. So this story is about how he kind of becomes part of the team. And his backstory is he's a child with no family. And so, you know, what happened to his family that made him want to come and join a bunch of scary bears on a ship and fight pirates is he's got a tragic backstory. You know, he's kind of, he's an orphan. And, you know, he views this as a way to kind of take control of what happened to his family and kind of, you know, work it out and fight against the thing. He's stand up to the thing he's afraid of, which is pirates.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he's full of all gusto and stuff, but he's also a kid who's scared of things and he's trying to kind of work through it. And so those kinds of things pop up with all the characters. They all have backstories. They all have, you know, that kind of thing to dive into. And sometimes it's some really serious stuff, and kind of how they deal with it is how you can see how we all deal with things we're afraid of and things we are mad about and haven't kind of like resolved in our own, you know, our own psyche and our own lives. And so with kids especially, it's kind of Jimmy and Rosie become really good friends, almost like surrogate brother and sister. And then it's kind of these two kids against this world around them that's always at war with itself. There's pirate bears and pirates and, you know, other bigger, scarier, evil things and stuff that they'll all have to face together. But ultimately, the two of them, as long as they're together, they work it out together and they figure out together how to kind of get through and pull through.
I love that. I think because of that, because you've put in some serious stuff, I absolutely agree with you with what you said earlier, where this will be a great book that if someone walks into a comic shop and this is on the shelf, they can go, hey, do you have something for kids? So retailers, absolutely, because I know there are a couple of comic shops that follow me in the area that love indie stuff because of what I do, and I can help them there. Retailer incentive packs, go 10 or 20 packs. I think it would be a fantastic book for someone to be able to, one, give their kid, because cool bear pirates that aren't like, I don't know, I guess Caillou-esque. They're not like super cutesy. Like you said, they've
Right.
got a bit of edge to them, a bit of grit, and yet I think the adults who might read these to their kids will pick up on some stuff that the kids might not catch and enjoy that story. So fantastic job on that one, Jerry. Oh my god. For
Thank you. I'm
sure.
excited. I mean, I hope I'm up to it. Honestly, I feel like when I get to this phase in the whole process, and I'm always like, the art is killer. I've been very lucky. My 2 projects that I've written, I've gotten to work with like, Nick is great. Mary's amazing. Takashi is literally legendary. And
Yeah.
I've just been like, and then all the cover artists who've done the covers like Walt Flanagan and Pablo Verdugo and Keith and all these people who've done these great covers for me. Like, I've been very lucky visually that the art has always been really good, and the artists can really make a book or break a book. If it's good, people will buy it before they read the words. I just hope when people get to the end of the story that they're like, I just wish somebody else wrote it. I hope they don't get to the end and that's how they feel. I get like nervous about it, like because it's also like the Grizzly Crew looks awesome. These kids look great. The dad and the mom are awesome. Like they're such like good looking characters. So I hope that at the end people enjoy the story and it lives up to the artwork.
Right on. No, you know what? I think that is a very one, thank you for sharing that. Very honest, very real fear. Because the art is killer in this. It looks like these guys could be action figures and belong on a shelf in Toys R Us somewhere. I have a feeling, based on the types of shots we're getting out of this, the way that you're paneling things and the way you've clearly written this, whatever dialogue ends up coming through in the story that people can get, I'm rather confident that they're going to enjoy this a lot. Cool question to ask. Fun, because we've got through most of the stuff that I was very curious about for the book. So let's get into the fun stuff. Earlier you mentioned you've gone to cons and things. I'm assuming for Cicada Samurai, or no, because you're still fulfilling it. You won't have gone there yet. Are you planning to take either Cicada Samurai and or Grizzly Crew to a con in the near future?
I would say not in the near future. I think when they're both, I've been I've been going with Blue Juice Comics, so I sell a lot of their trades. They have a lot of books that we're still moving books, still slinging paper. And the next time I do that, I'll definitely bring some of my own stuff. So I'll have Cicada Samurai. I'll have the Grizzly Crew. We don't have a plan to hit one of those conventions for a while. All the Blue Juice guys have day jobs. We're all still, almost all of them are still working in television or production of some kind. So, hitting a convention is a full-time thing to set up, organize, get the books where they need to be. We actually skipped MegaCon this year, which is three of the Blue Juice guys live within an hour and a half of Orlando. So that's like their hometown convention. Yeah. And we skipped it this year. So I would say probably towards the end of the year, I'd like to hit a couple. I might do Brooklyn Comic Con by myself.
Cool.
With just my stuff, and that's a smaller undertaking. We'll see about that. But I don't have a big con schedule just yet. I wanted to have more before I showed up at a convention with books. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like that's come up a number of times where I've spoken with people who are working on their second or third book strictly because they were like, yeah, when I've tabled in the past with just the one book, people look at it, see the cover, and then walk on because it's like, oh, it's just one. But they've said like the moment you've got 2 or 3 books on the table, people walk up to you and they're curious, they're interested, and then you can say, oh, hey, for yourself, you can go, oh, hey, so this is Cicada Samurai. This is like my adult action samurai book. Here's Grizzly Club or Grizzly Crew. It's a kid's book, and then whatever else you want to put on your table, whatever comes next for you. So honestly, good move.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, that's it. That's the goal. I think I'd like to have a couple more under my belt and then have more stuff on the table to talk about. I think it'll be more worth it there, that way. But who knows? I think you have to have, like, to do what I'm doing, I think you need to have a good ground game. So I don't want to wait too long before I'm doing that. I think you need to, like, meet people, have personal relationships. I know a lot of the successful Kickstarter creators. By the way, the Kickstarter creator community has been so like welcoming and not like jealous or
Good.
catty. Like they're so nice, and there's a bunch of guys who I'm in a couple of Discord, servers with people like Travis Gibb and Charlie Stickney, and like these guys who have like these big books online. Frank Martin,
Charlie, yeah.
Yeah, and they're great, and they just like Charlie answers questions all day. He doesn't need to do that. Brand new people come into the Discord and they're like, "Who should I print with?" And he's got a list of people he's worked with and what his experiences have been, and he's always willing to share. They all are. Travis had me on his show last week. They're all willing to they're all happy they truly believe that thing about a rising tide lifting all ships. So they've all been really wonderful and like supportive. I forget why I started talking about them specifically, but
the community and how supportive it is.
The community, yeah, but you asked the question before that I can't remember now. That wasn't about the community. I kind of made it about that, but it wasn't about that. I can't get back to it. It's all right. It's okay. If anyone in the comments if anyone's listening and wants to remind me where I was going with that would be great. But yeah, like the ground game. So all those people have a ground game. I met Travis Gibb at MegaCon, I think 3 years ago.
Cool.
And he had a lot of his books. He had just raised a bunch of money with his first Cthulhu Invades anthology series. And so he was like, on a high because of that. But he also is prolific. He has like 10 projects going at any given time. And so when he tables, he's one of those guys you walk past, you might not even know he's there because he's got like the thing that's all built. It's all around him like this, and you have to kind of get close and duck, and then you can see him in and around the books. He's got a great setup, but it's a ground game, and so you hit a bunch of conventions like that. You meet people personally, they buy your book, and then they come, you tell them, find me on Kickstarter. Here's a QR code. Here's my link.
Yep.
Here's follow me on social media. And that's how you kind of build a following. And those are the people who support you. So I don't want to wait too long before I start hitting conventions with my own stuff, but I don't think I'm ready quite yet.
No, you know what? That is a good call. I've seen a lot of people who are just, gunning it, getting themselves out there. And unfortunately, I find that if you don't take that second, take a breath, really be a little calculating, you'll burn a lot of money, especially with the cost of tables, especially at large conventions. Oh my God. And like I said earlier, you'll have people just sort of look at you, see your one book, and then walk on. Whereas if you have multiple and lots of banners and all stuff, they're like, oh, cool, this is good art. This is interesting. I'll be in there and I'll go check it out.
Yeah. If I go to a convention and I don't do well, I want it to be if it's because I people didn't like the thing I was selling, like I'd rather that than it's because I wasn't really ready to be there in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. One other question that was sort of scratching the back of my head for me is, given your day job, which is super cool, by the way, that you get to make TV programs. So you've worked with, I'm not exactly sure, what your daily life looks like, but you mentioned earlier you work with camera people, you've worked with editors, taking all these clips. So you have a very good idea of, from like ground level to final product, how to take all that random stuff people are doing or seemingly random and combine it to a product. What was it like, the process of putting this together, working with your artist, the sort of feedback loop maybe that you had with them about, oh, what do you want this to look like? How should this be? And frequent viewers of the show will recognize this question. What level of control did you give your artists compared to like, here's the exact thing you have to draw?
So I've written a lot of television, and when you do that, you're writing a manual where you need to be crazy specific, because so many different people in different departments that don't talk to each other have to take information from that manual that you're writing and build their own corner of the thing you're creating. And then they all have to get together weeks down the road, and those pieces all have to fit together into a cohesive vision. So the script you're reading is literally like a manual. The script that you're writing is a manual on a television show or a screenplay. In a comic book, what's nice is it's just a conversation between you and the artist. So I do both. With Nick actually prefers more specifics. He
Oh,
prefers
cool.
a little more detail. He prefers a full, sort of what's the, I know one is the Marvel method. The other one is, I guess, the DC method.
Yeah, I don't know the
the
term for it, but yes, DC's
Yeah.
like in-house style.
the more full script kind of a thing. Like Nick prefers that. Mary, I did both. There were pages where I had a very specific idea of something I wanted her to try and draw. And I would ask, like, can you just kind of lay it out this way? And if it doesn't work, let's talk through it and we'll change it. But there were some pages where, like, there's a page that I just said, like, the top of the page was a paragraph that just said, I want this whole page to feel like nice and warm, so that we fall in love with this character, because on the next page we're going to kill this character in a very like violent and bloody way, and I want the audience to be like in love with this guy. It's only a 10-page story, so I was like, we have one page to fall in love with this one character. I want to see the world through their eyes. I want to feel everything the way they're feeling it, and then I'm going to rip them in half, like, as soon as you turn the page. So, and Mary loves drawing monsters and big violent scenes, so I kind of left a lot of that up to her, but there were other pages where I was like, we're in a field and there's a rabbit and the rabbit does this and then this happens. Very specific. So I'd say both. And if you have an artist that you trust, you can kind of do that, and you can kind of have an unclear vision about what a thing looks like and let them fill in that blank, because that's what they're there for. That's what your artist is there for, is because they're visual. And ideally you're working with somebody who elevates the story beyond where you had it. So I want to always give people the room to do that. And I do that with Nick too. He just generally prefers a few more specifics about how many panels and things like that on a page.
Oh, cool.
And we'll talk and we'll negotiate those things sometimes, but he just likes that more. I find that, like, I'm happy to do it however they want to do it, as long as we're communicating and ultimately we get to something that's really cool.
Yeah, as long as by the end of the day you're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, because of what you do for a day job, I imagine, and I suppose this works for a lot of people who work in film in a similar capacity to yourself, like people who do storyboarding, they walk into comics and they're like, oh, cool, this is just how you do this. But I imagine with your day job, it's just, you must be able to work very easily with people who require different things to be able to make that final product the way you see it. So kudos on having a really good skill set, dude.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just the ability to collaborate with people and kind of, fill in what they need so that they can do their job better. I think that's a big part of it.
Massive. Well, we are 2 minutes shy of the hour. So Jerry, I always tend to ask the same two questions to end my interviews. So the first one, I hope it's an easy one for you. What is it that you've been enjoying lately, whether it's a comic, a book, a podcast, audiobook, whatever? What's that thing that's keeping you happy?
I actually just started, I'm about halfway through Monarch on Apple TV. I'm rewatching The Walking Dead with my 12-year-old. That's been like a lot of fun, kind of binging it quickly through. He's a little young for it. I saw the face.
A little bit, but like, you know what? I
little...
remember watching stuff I shouldn't either, so meh.
Absolutely. And I would say that probably because of Mary and because of her style of drawing Cicada Samurai, which has kind of an anime tinge to it, I started watching a bunch of anime. Like there were pages I wrote, that page where I tore a character in half and then she drew it. She asked me if I'd seen something on Netflix called Devilman Crybaby, and I had not. And she said something about the panel, the way I drew it, reminded her of a very specific scene in Devilman Crybaby. So I started watching that. Blue Eye Samurai, which I think is on everybody's list of the best things on TV this last year. And I'm watching another one now called Onimusha, which is really good.
Right on.
Also
based on a video game series. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm enjoying a lot of cartoons on Netflix and stuff like that. That's kind of what I've been doing, and then watching old shows with my kids.
Nice. Very, very cool. Is Onimusha, is it good?
It's really it's weird. Like, see, Blue Eye Samurai is so good that like watching anything after that, you just can't help compare it. And I finished Blue Eye Samurai, and like that night I started watching the other show. And so I was like, it's a different pace, it's a different feeling. But like once I kind of changed gears mentally myself and altered not lowered, but altered my expectations for how it was going to go and what was going to happen, I'm really into it. It's a lot of fun. It's another one of those things where like, I think it's John. You know who John Cameron Mitchell is, who did Hedwig and the Angry Inch?
No.
It was a musical on Broadway, but years before that, it was a
Oh.
rock and roll show in like the Zipper Club in New York
Cool.
City. And this was like 24 years ago when it was a show. Neil Patrick Harris won a Tony playing the character on Broadway a few years back, like 6-7 years ago.
Okay, yes, that I remember.
Yeah, it's a great show, and it's about a transsexual who moves from communist East Berlin to America to fall in love and kind of wants to become a rock star. And it's a musical, and it's like hilarious and dark and twisted. And I remember an interview he did that always stuck with me, which was like, if you want to create something new, there aren't a lot of stories that are new stories. Like we're all kind of rehashing stories that we're all a little bit familiar with and kind of putting a spin on them. But just take some things that you love that have nothing to do with each other and just smash them together. And that's kind of what I think Onimusha does. It's like a samurai story, but it's also got this like twisted supernatural, zombie thing to it. And even that, it's not like calling it a zombie, like the Netflix blurb, it like doesn't really tell you what it's about. Like, because I thought, I was like, oh, it's a samurai with zombies. No, I'll give it an episode. And then it's like, it's not. It's a totally other thing, and it's really entertaining. But it's just a thing where you could tell somebody took two things they loved and just jammed them together and came up with a new thing that's like, oh, this is a cool spin on zombies and samurais. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's cool. Growing up, I was a huge fan of those games. I loved them. Interestingly enough, Jean Reno was in the third one, the game. So I've been really curious about it, but tentative because I'm like, I don't know how to feel about it. So thank you. I will go watch it now. And Jerry, my last question for you tonight, I hope it's easy as well. Who do you think we should have on the show next?
Oh, good Lord. I'll tell. So there's a few people. I mean, I could just list famous people, but like that's not really fair. My you already had Mary.
Yep. Who do you know that's doing a Kickstarter in the next 3 months that you think could use the boost?
I mean, Travis. Have you had Travis Gibb on?
Nope.
Travis is a fantastic talker. He knows everything about mainstream comics. That's what he grew up reading. He's a big lover of Spider-Man, but he also is like the king of Kickstarter indie people, and he just has like had a lot of success building his own cultivating like a really dedicated following of super fans that just follow him into all kinds of crazy stories. He does like a fantasy. It's one of the biggest things on Kickstarter. It's a fantasy anthology series called Cthulhu Invades, and it's him and a bunch of other people. Like it'll be an anthology with like 50 stories in it, all kind of telling the one narrative of Cthulhu invading Neverland or Oz or Wonderland. I think was the third one, and he'll go from that to like a story about a punk, like a 70s punk rocker kind of character who's also a witch. It's called Granite State Punk, and like
that's cool.
Yeah, and they're both awesome, and like the character in that is really awesome. He's got a lot of really great characters. He's got a Kickstarter going right now for something called it's his voodoo story, which I'm blanking on the actual name of.
Give me just Voodoo Nation issues 1 through 4.
Voodoo Nation. Yeah, so he actually just launched that a couple of days ago. He doesn't need the boost necessarily.
No,
he does very well. But I think he's like a fantastic person to talk to with this whole indie world. Like, he's really great.
Cool. I will shoot him a message. His work and his stuff looks really cool. Awesome. So, well, Jerry, absolutely. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time. For the folks out there in YouTube land, once again, the book is called The Grizzly Crew. Go out now. There is links in the doobly-doo. Go ahead, back the book. It'll be great for kids. Retailers, so go get the retailer incentive packs. But yeah, Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Thanks for having me, Konrad. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for those of you at home, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2.